Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Now, today I want to talk a little bit about the flight model. Now, I think I've spent enough time with this new flight model to actually make my official video about my thoughts, what I think uh, the changes feel like to the game. Basically, I didn't want to speak on it too early because I didn't really have that much experience with the new model, and I wanted to kind of give myself enough time to kind of get used to it. And I feel like I'm in that place now where I can make an official video talking about my thoughts about what I think is good about the flight model and what I think is bad about the flight model or what could be improved. So this is that official video, and I'm just going to get straight into it. So actually, I recently saw a video by Avenger One talking a little bit about his thoughts on the flight model and what he likes and doesn't like about it and what he thinks that CIG should change. And I think it's really good to watch videos from seasoned combat players to get their opinions as well. Not that I'm formulating my opinions based on what they're saying, but uh, I do want to keep my pulse on what the PvP community thinks about the flight model, is basically what I'm saying. Because I'm not a primarily combat player. So whenever I would say I want to give feedback on a system that involves a gameplay loop that I'm not, heavily entrenched in, I definitely want to look at, outside opinions from individuals who are highly skilled in that kind of arena. So basically, the main point of A1's video was kind of went over his thoughts about 3 degrees of freedom and 6 degrees of freedom. And to kind of summarize that video, and I'll leave it linked in the video description if you guys want to take a look at it. But essentially, uh, he believes that the issue is that the the 6 degree of freedom flight model that they were used to has been limited and kind of cut off, and so it feels kind of more like a 3 degrees of freedom system. Okay, so if you're not deep into flight mechanics or whatever, I'm just gonna quickly explain kind of what that means and what that is. Okay, so in a video game where a vehicle has 3 degrees of freedom, which is very similar to what older um space combat games had. They had more of a 3 degrees of freedom flight model. And what that is basically is you have up and down movement, you have side to side movement, and then you have forward and backwards movement. Okay, so your vehicle can move in 3 directions essentially. Again, that is up and down, side to side, and forward and back. Okay, now 6 degrees of freedom is when your vehicle can roll, it can pitch up and down, the nose of it can pitch up and down, and it can yaw side to side. That is uh, nose control, essentially. Okay, so uh, you have 3 extra degrees of movement. Okay, so that didn't change with this flight model. In Star Citizen, you still have 6 degrees of freedom. Okay, um, so what is the real issue here? Okay, well, I think, and this is my personal opinion, is that when CIG made the new flight model, they didn't just change the speeds, okay? They also changed a lot of uh what do you call it? They changed the thrust pattern essentially. So this was talked about by CAG. They went from an egg-shaped thrust pattern. No, they went from a circle-shaped thrust pattern to an egg-shaped thrust pattern. And so what that essentially means is, I'll just kind of change this a little bit here so we can see it better. Okay. What that essentially means that uh, when your ship is moving, you have the most thrust uh, forward, okay? And then side to side, you have uh, maybe like half that, and then backwards, you have maybe about half that. So uh, most of your acceleration is moving forward in the forward direction, okay? Um, Whereas the older model, you could kind of move in different directions at a similar rate. And so what was happening is that because of the combination of a circular thrust pattern and um, the ability to trichord, which is essentially uh, multiple inputs for different directions, you could over accelerate in a direction essentially and uh, move faster side to side or in any direction. Okay. And CIG eliminated tricording in the new flight model, and they reduced your ability to move in any direction at the same acceleration as forward acceleration. So the new model is very different from the old model. Okay. So CIG's goal with this new model was to get ships to essentially um, fight more like World War II biplanes. So by slowing the speed, uh, you will be able to maneuver more. But in my opinion, because they moved to this egg-shaped thrust pattern, people are not maneuvering as much. Okay, so in my opinion, you have to design the flight model for the type of gameplay that you want. Okay. And I think that the current situation with PvP derives directly from this egg-shaped flight pattern, this egg-shaped thrust pattern. And there are a couple of um, situations that kind of leads us to believe this, right? Okay, so if you look at the PvP community and you ask them how dogfights are going right now, is a lot of combat players are putting boost into their alternative maneuvers. So if you're essentially pitching and yawing and going side to side, they're boosting the entire time. Okay, so that kind of leads you to believe that there is a deficiency in uh, lateral G's or what they want to be able to accelerate in these to kind of outmaneuver the other player that they're fighting with. They are staying on boost the entire time. So that essentially means that there is a deficiency in maneuverability in their opinion, okay? And it's not a deficiency in top speed. It's a deficiency in your thrust curve. So how fast you can accelerate in that direction. Okay. So they want to be able to accelerate in that direction faster, like how they could when tricording existed. So they're boosting a lot to try to maneuver. And you can ask any PvP player that's what they're doing. Second of all, you're seeing a lot of players who are still jousting. Okay. And why is that happening? If the speeds have been lowered, why are players still rushing in to close the gap? Well, It's not really that players are rushing in to close the gap and jostling each other. It's that players are picking the the direction that has the fastest acceleration, and that just so happens to be the forward direction in this flight model. So for them to close gaps and outmaneuver their opponent, the fastest accelerating direction is forward movement. So a lot of players are still jousting. If CIG, and this is more just to get to the point, if CIG ditched the egg-shaped thrust pattern and went back to a circular shaped thrust pattern, you would see people joust less, and you would see people stay on boost less, because if thrusting forward had the same acceleration as thrusting side to side and backwards, then players would try to maneuver in that direction, right? And if you're maneuvering that way and your opponent is maneuvering that way, then you'll stay on boost a little bit less, because your speeds are essentially a little bit more evenly matched in that scenario. And especially if you get rid of that, you get rid of all of that forward acceleration, um then you're going to spend a lot less time closing gaps, because right now, again, you're picking the direction that has the most acceleration. So that's your forward direction. You're rushing in, your opponent's doing the exact same thing, and you're jousting. Okay. And again, this jousting, in my opinion, is coming from this egg-shaped thrust pattern. Um, and so now, if you go to this more, bubble-shaped thrust pattern, and players start maneuvering a little bit more, I feel like that will solve a lot of the PvP community's frustration with the way that dogfighting handles right now, spending less time on boost. People will spend less time jousting. Now, what about the speeds? Okay, so in my opinion, this makes sense. Okay, from the mindset that when you go into standard control mode from quantum mode, you are restricting your engines. So your forward acceleration is restricted in standard control mode. So, in my opinion, it makes sense for you to have reduced acceleration. So, what CAG could do, use like a hybrid system where forward acceleration is the same as, bidirectional acceleration, meaning, your 6 degrees of freedom, side to side, up and down, your pitch, yaw, and roll, all of that stuff. They all have the same acceleration rate. They all pull the same amount of G's. Okay. Uh, but your forward movement has a higher top speed. So the way you could calculate that is, let's say that your forward acceleration has a top speed of 250 meters a second, but your side to side and your backwards uh, thrust only has 180 meters a second top speed, but they accelerate at the same rate. Okay, so um, you're going to get to 180 meters at the same rate in the forward direction, side to side, or the backwards direction. So if you were trying to outmaneuver someone, it would make sense to go sideways, go backwards, pitch, yaw, roll, whatever you want to do, um, rather than to go forward. But if you needed to catch someone, i.e., if you were in something like an interceptor, okay, you would still be able to get to that top speed needed to catch someone and essentially be an interceptor. So that flight model would still work for interceptors and racing ships and whatnot. So for people who want that higher skill ceiling, uh, I think that kind of enables you to get that, but at the same time, because of the slower speed, you still have that lower skill floor, because at the end of the day, that's what CAG wants to do. That's what they want to go with. They want to have a high skill ceiling and a low skill floor, so new players can get into the game and seasoned players have an ability to, develop their skills and get good at. Okay, so weapons balances aside, I already talked about the shields and stuff like that. So I made my video about the shields. Now I'm talking about the flight model, and sometime in the future I'll talk about weapons. I'm really not too eager to talk about weapons because CIG is changing that so much and rebalancing and whatnot. But I feel like the flight model is something that I can wholeheartedly give feedback on now, because it seems like this is the model that CIG is staying with. But I think that they should get rid of the egg-shaped thrust pattern. But let me know what you guys think. That's what this challenge is all about. This challenge is all about hearing from you guys. If you are a PvP player, if you are really liking this flight model, if you prefer the old one, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. That's why I do this channel. I love hearing from you guys. I'm gonna be down there replying to people, kind of trying to take a pulse on the situation. But I am liking the flight model. I do like the slower speeds. Okay, it's just the movement needs work, but I like the slower speeds. I like the 2 modes. I don't have a problem with that at all. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me here in today's video, you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I don't want to take up any more of your time. Like I always say at the end of these videos, you guys, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Salud.